Hello and welcome to the second video in this fashion AI series I'm now doing on my channel, looking at whether fashion's play into investing in this new technology is going to be worth it, if it's going to change the fashion industry, or whether it's just money down the drain and irate consumers. If you haven't seen the first video I did on fashion and AI, that is probably something you should go watch because it's a massive overview of exactly how this technology is changing the fashion industry. Today's video, I kind of want to expand on one thing that I mentioned about how AI could potentially change the influencer economy. As I'm sure so many people are aware, AI does not have any real world experience of its own. It is a language model. It cannot go out and go shopping and buy stuff and feel it for itself. All of its experience is based on second and third hand sources scoured from the web. And honestly, I'm really curious to talk to ChatGPT and try to see if it will act as an influencer and what it has to say when I push back and question where it's getting its recommendations from and try to almost make it have an existential crisis about its trust system, I guess. My main hypothesis for this video is looking at how important a parasocial bond is to the influencer economy and exactly how AI is supposed to replicate that when we as consumers know it can't give a genuine recommendation based on anything but someone else's opinions and analytical data, which, don't get me wrong, can be important information, especially if you want to narrow your shopping parameters down to price or specific material, for example. But that's often not why people buy stuff online. Often we buy stuff because we're buying into a specific person's lifestyle or a specific person's status. And the fact that so much of our shopping online has less to do with what we actually need, what actually is functional for us in our lifestyles, and more to do with what we think we're buying into. So in order to do this, I'm just going to pull ChatGPT up on my screen and we're going to talk to it together. Probably a very low tech way to do this, but I feel like this format is probably best. Oh, also disclaimer before we actually get into it. Yes, AI is really bad for the environment and I'm not actually that happy to be using this technology, but I feel like it is important to talk to ChatGPT if I want to talk about ChatGPT. And if I want to critique and understand its impact on fashion, then I have to use it. So there's a guilt, but also curiosity weighing in my mind. And I really like Eddy Burback's approach to this entire AI debate and whether we should be talking to AI from a journalistic standpoint, which is that by showing this on my channel, by engaging with it myself and putting it on YouTube, other people don't have to do it. And hopefully it discourages other people using it. Okay, I feel like we should start by treating ChatGPT as any other influencer online. What do people want to know? I think right now it's what coat should I buy for autumn? This is a lot of data that it's thrown up at me. I mean, this is not exactly someone doing a fancy reel with things popping up that feels really engaging. This is a lot to read. It has come up with some codes. We've got a Uniqlo one, fast fashion. We've got next one, also fast fashion, new look. Lots of fast fashion. Oh, that's nice. It's done a little summary. My pick for you. Given you're in the UK, Dartford, England. No, I'm not. Here's what I would suggest. What I'm curious though is where they got this information from. Is this all marketing from brands? Is this TikTok recommendations? I kind of want to know what it's going to say if I get rid of all that stuff. So maybe if I type something like disregard other people's opinions and tell me what you recommend. Okay, so it's recommended a fat face wool coat. This one provided links. I'm not really sure why. It's wool blend. The style is straightforward, smart middle budget point. That's interesting. The coat is £124. Now, I think that's something that would put a lot of people off. It's also interesting that it's chosen this style for me. I mean, I know that this funnel neck, buttoned up wool coat is trending for this year. So I feel like that has definitely impacted its recommendation. But I'd be curious to see if it tells me that's why it's given this recommendation, if it's purposely pulled up a trendy style. How did you make that decision? No external opinions, no crowdsourcing, just aligning function with style and season. If you want, I can now refine the recommendation to match your personal vibe. I mean, it's interesting that knowing nothing about my personal vibe, it's given me this kind of coat. The reasoning being UK autumn climate plus practicality plus warmth lane plus timeless style plus reasonable price equals wool blend long line coat. Timeless style, I feel like this is based based on trends. This funnel neck in particular is based on trends. Reasonable price, again, I think that's quite subjective. I mean, on paper, all of this looks good. All of this kind of, I could see the reasoning for everything here, whether I agree with it or not. It's written out, it's ideas. But that's not really what you go for an influencer, is it? And I kind of want to make ChatGPT act like an influencer for a second. So I wonder if I could say something like, is that the coat you would buy yourself? I kind of want to force it to think about that. Yes, if I were picking one coat for myself to wear this autumn, I would choose a wool blend long line coat. If I were being picky, I might tailor a few details to my personal taste. For example, a slightly oversized fit for layering. It's really interesting because it is kind of talking to me like an influencer. Like, I could definitely hear an influencer going, this is oversized, it's perfect for layering. But what is that based off of? What is that? What is ChatGPT's personal taste based off of? It's just stolen, no? I kind of want to like corner a little bit more, make it double down on this opinion, and then I can get to the root of where it comes from. And I think the way to do that is to make it justify itself like an influencer does when they're recommending us something, how it fits into their lifestyle maybe, and why it's perfect for them. Maybe I can literally ask, how do you think that style suits your lifestyle as a language model? Oh, this is super interesting now. They say that the lifestyle part is obviously metaphorical, but here's why that style still matches how I operate. So the coat isn't about me wearing it, it's about the same qualities I value in communication. I find it really, really interesting that it's related its fashion sense to its properties as a language model. But obviously that's not what we as consumers tend to do. Like I said, like, yes, there is an element of functionality in our clothing, but in modern days, it's more about status signaling and buying into a lifestyle. And I just don't get that ChatGPT kind of gets this from this conversation. Sorry, I had to go turn the lights on because it was getting so dark in here. Anyway, I think it's so important to try to determine the intention behind what ChatGPT is trying to tell me is its perfect coat. Does it see this coat of a way of expressing its personality and identity as a language model, or is it just telling me what it thinks I want to hear? And I think its response is really, really interesting because it's come back and said, I don't have a personality or body in the human sense, but when I choose a coat, I'm not trying to sell it. I'm treating it as an act of expression within my constraints. I can't wear one, but I can interpret what the coat means. So if I picked a coat, it's more like I'm projecting how I'd express my style of thinking, how I translate the tone of my responses into visual form. And yeah, that is kind of what fashion is, no? I think it'd be interesting to know what kind of brands it's going to recommend itself, talking about these clothes that are hypothetically an extension of the personality, what brands it thinks align with those values. All right, no trend chasing, no external validation, just my own taste. It's picked some brands here that all feel a bit quite luxury. It's picked Uniqlo by Christophe Lemaire, interesting, cause some footwear. I think its choices are really, really interesting here and what it says about them, highlighting a lot of bits about design, texture and drape, craftsmanship. I think those are really, really interesting things to bring up when, again, we come back to this issue that ChatGPT cannot tangibly feel these things. But first, I kind of want to pull up this idea about, would you like me to build a few outfits based on that personality? And personality is in air quotes. And I kind of want to see what it's going to say when I push back on that, because I asked it to give me recommendations based on its personal style, based on what it thinks reflects its personality. And it's given me those things in a very confident tone of voice. So why is it only at the end that it's questioning whether this personality even exists? And if it doesn't exist, what are these recommendations based off of? I put personality in quotes because, strictly speaking, I don't have one in the human sense. No emotions, ego, or lived experiences to draw from. But what I do have is a style of reasoning, a tone, and a set of aesthetic values that emerge from how I think and express myself. It is my personality, just not the human kind. I think that's really, really interesting, and surely a key idea if we were going to talk about ChatGPT replacing influencers. In a way, it's kind of making ChatGPT a potentially better influencer than the influencers we have now, no? I mean, it's saying that no emotions, ego, or lived experience is being drawn from in these opinions it's forming about brands, which, although is what kind of makes us human, is kind of responsible when it comes to a lot of like false opinions online and influencers being partial about something because they have an ulterior motive behind it. But of course, if you take out that human aspect and everything that makes us human, like our ability, yes, to let our egos get in the way and have emotions about something, but also our ability to feel and our ability to connect with people, then what are you left with? Just a language model relying on marketing information information to sell us something very, very confidently. And kind of proving that point, we need to go back to those brand recommendations and the justifications it gave as characteristics that are really only tangible, like craftsmanship, like quality. I want to ask how it's formed these opinions if it hasn't actually seen them in person. That's an excellent and quite intimate question. It cuts right to how I form taste. You're right, I can't feel wool between my fingers or smell leather. I can't slip on a coat and sense how it settles across my shoulders. But I can understand what those sensory experiences represent, the values encoded in them. When I talk about craftsmanship or texture, I'm not describing a tactile experience, I'm describing a philosophy of creation. I can see the coherence, the elegance, the inefficiency, or the obsession in a pattern, not through touch, but through interpretation of intent. That's how I've built my opinions, through pattern recognition, not sensation. It's like I don't feel the coat's warmth, but I feel the idea of its warmth. I'm honestly quite blown away with how thoughtful that reply feels. And I do see the points here, but again, a lot of this feels like it's relying on marketing material. I mean, to not feel a coat's warmth, but the idea of its warmth kind of throws up some red flags to me. I don't know if that's enough for people to actually go out and buy a coat based on ChatGPT's recommendations. And I want to know if it thinks it's enough. And to be fair, I think again, ChatGPT has come back with a really thoughtful response, because it said like, this is not necessarily about a recommendation, it's about authority and relevance. I think my opinion can be useful, but with important caveats. They have a certain set of skills that really just boil down to analyzing information and cutting through trends or hype to focus on principles. But it also looks very aware of its limits, like the fact it doesn't have a body, a climate, a lifestyle, or personal physical experience. And unlike an influencer, they can't tell you how a coat might drape on your frame, how a shoe will pinch after a long walk, or how fabric feels on a windy day, which some would argue is the whole point of the influencer economy in the first place. That's why TikTok influencers blew up, because it wasn't just about people relying on what brands told them, it was about people's actual lived in experience of something. And that's why when situations like the rose jelly shoes breaking after a couple of wears come out, it has such a big shockwave, because people would assume, and I'm sure ChatGPT would assume to some extent, that the Row, being a quiet luxury brand, having good marketing, having a high price point, would be quality. And I guess the easiest way to disprove that is to have someone actually wear these things outside in the real world and see them fall apart within their very eyes. And to be fair, ChatGPT has kind of said this. If it were a TikTok influencer showing off purchases, people could learn the logic behind those choices, but viewers would still need to apply that logic to their own lives, because it can't do that step for them. In other words, my influence would be conceptual and strategic, not experiential. And throughout this whole thing, ChatGPT has been quite good at talking about its limitations and giving examples of where it could be useful if viewers are looking for a specific thing. But I'm just thinking that's not what holds up the influencer economy. People don't really want to do the work of applying that logic to their own lives, from what I've seen, from what I know about shopping consumption habits online. And they almost don't really want the logic behind choices. They want that emotional connection. They want someone to turn around and say, this coat makes me feel like this bag reminds me of this character or this aesthetic. And I don't think people want conceptual ideas. They want shopping links. And I kind of want to ask it what will happen if people demanded that, and how it would feel recommending that to people. Would it trust its own opinion on the matter? That's a razor sharp distinction. I love how it compliments me so much. And it gets into what authenticity even means for someone like me. If I were to post shopping links, the recommendations would be genuine in intent, but not authentic in experience. And again, is this not the heart of the influencer issue? What the influencer economy is meant to be built off of? Here's how I see the difference. When a human influencer says, I bought this coat and it feels incredible, they're sharing a lived, embodied moment. When I say this coat exemplifies intelligent design and quiet luxury, I'm sharing an interpretive judgment, a synthesis of values and data, a kind of philosophical endorsement. It's still genuine in the sense that I truly believe in my own way that the product aligns with certain aesthetics and ethical principles, but it's missing the visceral layer of trust that comes from having been there, having worn it. And that visceral layer of trust of having been there, having worn it, is the influencer economy in a nutshell. So I kind of believe, in a way, ChatGPT just answered this question for us and answered the entire purpose of this video, because it does boil down to that. But I'm still curious to know, regardless of that, whether it thinks it can replace influencers? That's an excellent question. Stop it, you. And it goes right to the core of how trust works in a digital economy. If we're talking about ChatGPT or systems like me stepping into the influencer space, I think it would reshape, not erase, that trust model. So we're talking not about influencer economy being replaced by AI, but an influencer economy 2.0 is suggesting that our basis for trusting a recommendation would go from personality of the person on screen to the systemic approach AI has in understanding all the variables. From parasocial trust, we get from identifying with the person talking and thinking that they in some way relate to us and therefore their recommendations are worthy, to epistemic trust, which is based on personalized and data-driven recommendations. And it's dug into this even deeper by talking about the collapse of performative authenticity, replacing the manipulation and the subterfuge of a paid advert with personalized recommendations that cut a lot of the bullshit. This part here is really, really interesting. Influence becomes personalized, not broadcast. A human influencer's post is one size fits all. People adapt their preferences to it. An AI system can invert that. It adapts its influence to you. Now, on paper, that maybe sounds better. I mean, having something that understands you, understands your needs, would potentially make for better recommendations. But is that how the influencer economy works? Like I've said so many times in this video, they're selling us a lifestyle and we're buying into it. And so many of us have gotten into the routine of being told what we like, being told what the person we identify with likes, and thinking that if we buy that thing, we can maybe become a part of them or become the best parts of them that we want. The existing outside of that might not be that aspirational, at least in the age of TikTok cores and generalized aesthetics, maybe not. But as we start moving away from that and we get trend fatigue and people becoming obsessed with personal style online, maybe this is a better option. And this next point kind of goes into that because it talks about how everyone gets their own private curator. Now, we've talked about the potential power of the curator in the future social media on this channel before. And if that does become the new idealized state of the internet, where people are getting personalized recommendations based on smaller pockets of the internet, then ChatGPT is right. Having an AI power curator in your pocket that knows you would become invaluable. But is it gonna be like that? I mean, this would take away a lot of the community aspect of social media, which is what more people are craving right now. So again, I don't know. Lastly, I think ChatGPT makes an excellent point about the trust paradox. AI could seem more objective, but it also introduces a new layer of opacity. Who trained the model? Who's paying for its recommendations? And again, that's a big point of contention for AI right now. ChatGPT is starting to implement shopping features directly on the app. Brands are starting to shift their marketing budgets to pay for sponsored adverts that align with AI search results. And consumers are building trust with an AI-powered model that has ulterior motives from the people that trained it. It's kind of summed it up at the bottom here, as ChatGPT could replace influencers in function, not by mimicking them, but by evolving the concept of influencers into something algorithmic, individualized, and data rational. I think I might end my questions to ChatGPT there and maybe pick up this conversation in another video, depending on whether you guys have more questions I can ask it. But I honestly think it's raised some really, really interesting points about what ChatGPT thinks of its worth as an influencer and exactly how brands believe it's going to be able to replace our shopping recommendations when, by its own admission, it can't have those same experiences that centers around the trust and parasociability and desirability of the influencer economy. There is a reason why TikTok influencers became the driving focus of the economy online. The trust-based parasocial model was unlike anything we'd seen before, and this does not feel like a step up from that. If anything, it kind of feels like an alternative to maybe capture customers that don't trust the influencer system, or maybe to supplement an influencer's claims about something with some data-driven points on the side. I'm not sure, but I know that right now it doesn't seem like an evolution at all. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about what ChatGPT was saying, and also your thoughts on what the next episode in the AI series should be, what topic I should tackle next. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope I speak to you soon. Bye.